You're listening to the Fit Bottom Girls podcast, the only podcast for active, athletic, and adventurous women and those who aspire to be. We've got your back as you navigate the ups and the downs of motherhood, midlife, and menopause. I'm your host, Allison Hylett, here to remind you that female isn't fragile. I'm a strength, conditioning, and nutrition coach who's trained hundreds of women to achieve their goals to get fit, lift heavy, go the distance, and feel like a badass in every area of their lives. Each week, you'll hear from me and some of our awesome guests as we educate and empower you during each stage of your fitness journey, whether you're already crushing it, fighting to get back out there, or starting from day one. So friends, let's get into it. Hello, Fit Bottom friends. I am your host, FBG Allison, and I am here today with Sage Rountree. But before we dive in, here's what you need to know about Sage. She is a pioneer and an internationally recognized authority in yoga for athletes. She is a master yoga teacher trainer and an endurance sports coach with certifications from USA Triathlon, USA Cycling, and the Roadrunners Club of America. She's also the author of 10 books, including The Athlete's Guide to Recovery, Everyday Yoga, The Runner's Guide to Yoga, and Racing Wisely. She contributes to Yoga Journal and Runner's World, where she sat on the advisory board for 10 years. And her work is all about helping people relax so that they can achieve peak performance in sports and in life. So welcome to the show, Sage.
Thanks. When you call me a pioneer, I got an image of a covered wagon.
Oregon Trail flashbacks.
Garrison.
So I met you back in 2017 while attending your Yoga for Athletes and teaching Yoga for Athletes trainings at Kripalu. And I remember that one of the things that really stood out about you is that you were the only person I could find at the time who was teaching a style of yoga that I could really connect with as a tired, sore athlete. So many of the other teachers I found were teaching this really super athletic style of yoga to athletes. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I was just too tired to do another chaturanga or a hop flow class after my training. And I really loved and appreciated that your focus was yoga as a recovery modality for active people. So I'd love for you to start by sharing a little bit about what led you to becoming a teacher whose focus is on recovery.
Probably the very same reason that you found me is just personal experience of being in yoga class and being like, whoa, this is too hard. Like I ran 15 miles this morning. So, you write the book you want to read and you teach the class you want to take, I think. And that's exactly why my class is way more mellow than people might expect when they see the word athletes. But yoga for athletes is not athletic yoga. It's really yoga for tight and tired people who need that emphasis on recovery, who need a little less, but who can get some of the mental benefits while the physical intensity of the practice is way lower.
Oh, I love that, because I think as yoga teachers, as a yoga teacher, and as somebody who's been around a lot of yoga teachers, we spend a lot of time really emphasizing this physical practice and the different poses and what they're used for. And this really dives deeper into what I've always found as an athlete to be most beneficial, which is it makes me a better athlete, a more mentally durable athlete, and more present with what's going on, and more able to tune into the experience in my body instead of just ignoring it and trying to keep training.
Yeah, I think that we develop as athletes a comfort with discomfort that a lot of quote unquote regular people are using their yoga practice as a tool to develop. But we're getting that intensity in our workouts themselves. So we don't need to be challenged on the mat in the same way to develop that skill of comfort with discomfort in the way that Gen Pop might. What we need is comfort with comfort. We need to slow down. We need to be okay with just lying there. We need to be okay with not going to the deepest expression of a pose or winning at yoga. And developing comfort with comfort is really critical for your endurance as an athlete, like over time, for the longevity of your career, as you would say it, for your durability. Because you've got to tune into those signs from your body that is saying like, you might be pushing a little bit too much, or this area might need some extra attention, or time for a massage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the idea of creating balance with the yoga practices. Like, what are you getting a lot of in your life? And where have things become a little bit out of balance? And if so, in those times where, especially if you're training for an event, if you're a runner and you're training for a marathon, as time goes on, there's an increase in intensity, there's an increase in volume. You're getting more and more tired. And being able to just recognize that we need to make that space for a little of the opposite and be able to, like you say, find comfort in comfort. So when we're looking at not just athletes, active people, but also just busy, overwhelmed, overstimulated people that are jamming a lot into their life, which I think is really common nowadays, especially for women, where they're maybe taking care of kids, they're maybe taking care of their parents, they themselves are aging, they're trying to keep these things in their life that they're really passionate about. Like they want to keep the running, they want to keep the classes, they want to keep the lifting. And at some point, you hit critical mass. And I think that yoga can be a really great place for people to go in that situation as well, in the same way that like athletes need this balance. Human beings just need that balance, right?
Absolutely, 100%. And what's weird is that when you feel like you're too busy to go to yoga is when yoga actually has the most to offer you. And when some proactive self-care winds up creating space in your schedule and your mind in ways that can be really healthy. So instead of giving in to that, like, oh no, I'd rather just go home and sit on the sofa, it's often worth taking that little extra push that gets you into the studio or firing up the video if you want to do yoga at home, because it's generative. It creates this new well of energy simply by not asking you to do anything other than show up.
Yeah, and I love that too, that regenerative, that kind of that feeling of it recharging your batteries, because I know personally, like myself as a business owner and all the things that I do, and I'm sure you've been there too, and my clients have certainly been there, where you're in this moment where it's time to do a yoga practice, whether it's at home or it's the studio. And there's this nagging voice in my head that's just like, you should just keep working and being productive. Taking time to rest is not productive. And that's a trap.
Clearly, yeah. If you don't take the time to rest, you just eventually are just going to be on that downward slope that ends in not good stuff.
Yeah. And those recovery practices really have a way of giving back more time than they're taking away from us, because the clarity that you come back with and the ability to see things from a different perspective and have like your nervous system be like here rather than like somewhere up here. And the way that you can approach problems is quite different in that mindset.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've got to give your system time to power down. And often that's where the creative insights come anyway. It's not only giving you like the physical recharge, but it's also a creative, mental, psychological recharge. You know, I first had the idea for the Athlete's Guide to Recovery, which at that point was, I think, my third book, in a restorative yoga class. Because I was lying there with my legs up the wall and it's like, oh, this is so relaxing. This is so good. I really need this. All athletes need this. There should be a book on this. And then my brain was actually off and outlining the book for the rest of the workshop, but I needed to settle down. So there's a lot of, in any recovery practice, there's a whole lot of faith and patience, and just having faith that taking the time to do a little less is going to pay back huge dividends.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like every time I've told myself, no, you don't need to take a break and do a yoga class. You just need to stay here and be more productive. And it's like later on in the day, I'm like, that was a terrible decision. That was just a terrible decision. Yeah, I think a lot of people that I work with move through their lives and they're not really seeing a lot of the signs that recovery is something that we really need to pause for. So how do we measure it? How do we measure that we are in a recovered space to continue doing the things that we're doing in life?
Ultimately, it's about performance. So if you are competing or even just timing your workouts, it's seeing a positive trend and that you should be getting faster or capable of lifting more or just generally feeling better. It's a wonderful metric to measure by. The problem is people kind of get stuck in that middle, like I need to go pretty hard every day, and that's not the best for your body. If we can take a cue from nature and the systems and the seasons that we see all around us, like every day has a period of light and a period of dark. You know, there's time when you're awake and there's time when you're asleep. And that cycle plays out even bigger over the course of seasons and years, but then even smaller in a workout itself. You don't just go out, start running at your tempo pace and run at tempo pace for 60 minutes and then stop. You ease into it, and maybe you do 2 blocks of tempo with 5 minutes in between where you're walking or just running a lot more easily. So there's needs to be up and down, because if we're always only in this very narrow upper middle band of like, oh, every day is medium hard, we're really missing out. We're not sharpening the very upper end of our speed or explosive strength in the gym, and we're also not giving ourselves time to just develop a good base of aerobic fitness. So we need to have highs and lows, just like the day has noon and midnight. There needs to be a cyclicality to it. We can measure our recovery outside of performance in a couple of different ways. And you can spend a lot of money on it, or you can spend almost no money on it. You can take your resting heart rate, and that's pretty good baseline. That's free. All you need is a clock and your 2 fingers to take your pulse. And tracking that over time is going to start to give you some sense of, are you under more stress or less stress? Then you can get a little bit more fancy, and you can do like an orthostatic test where you take your resting heart rate lying down, where you stand up. And after 2 minutes, your heart rate will have peaked a little bit from the postural shift from lying down to standing up, but it should come pretty close back down to your lying down heart rate within 2 minutes. And if it doesn't, then that's another way to tell you. Or you can use your devices to tell you that. Your heart rate monitor, I think I see you have an Aura ring. That's another way that you can measure that. Yeah, your Apple Watch can tell you that as well. Or you can go and pay lots of money at recovery studios for them to track this for you. There are ways to track and hormones and other like biological markers, but your heart rate is a really decent way to begin to quantify, to put numbers on the state of your recovery. Ultimately, though, any of those are just tools to help you really feel on the inside, to trust your intuition and to think, this is a day when I need to drop the weights a little bit, or I'm going to take out the speed intervals in my run because I feel like I might be on the edge of pushing too hard. And once you can feel that interoceptively, then you're really cooking with gas. And then you're probably going to see your performance skyrocket as a result.
Yeah. Yeah, with my Aura ring, I've noticed that you can get really lost in the data and it can become very overwhelming. But if you are looking at it in terms of like trends, like you said, you're seeing how it changes over time and also correlating what's going on in your life and what you're feeling in the moment with this number helps to give it this tangible quantifier to what it is that I'm feeling.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, how does one enhance their recovery? How do we use the time that we have for recovery most effectively?
Do something that you really enjoy. And if that means that you're going to the spa and spending money on a massage, cool. I say that as a spa owner with a vested interest in that. But if you just want to sit in your recliner and read a novel, that's fantastic. If you want to go for a walk with your dogs, that's fantastic. Just make sure that you're not getting all sweaty and hot and actually putting too much physical stress on your body. If cooking helps you relax, then do cooking. It's really just whatever makes you happiest. If you feel like you aren't getting enough sleep, which basically means if you are listening to this episode, you probably already identify as sleep deprived. But take a nap. That's a great way to, it's probably the single best thing you can do to enhance your recovery is to up your game and sleep. And take a warm bath if that feels good. Don't take an ice bath because that's really just adding stress to your system. And while it might help you develop comfort with discomfort, I think we've already established that most athletes already have got that down. And instead they need to be taking like the warm bubble bath with candles and not the bath with the chunks of ice floating in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I've done the ice bath thing as a marathon athlete for a while. There was a big push around post long run, jump into the ice bath. And it was like, I had just ran 20 miles. And now I have to sit here and make this even harder on myself. No. Yeah, I'm with you. I used to, in fact, in the first edition of the recovery book, I said, yeah, well, all right, this is one thing you can be doing. And I've come to the realization that ice baths are hazing. And like any hazing ritual, like they can be really good for bonding and they can also be physically dangerous, right? But they are perpetuated because the coach's coach had them take an ice bath. So now the coach is going to make their athlete take an ice bath and the cycle just gets carried on. It's almost like it gets treated as a rite of passage.
Yeah.
It's like you're a real runner who's really trained when you have to take ice bath.
Cool. And people say, oh, yeah, it makes me tough. If you're not getting that sense of toughness from your workouts, what are you even doing? You need to run harder because the ice bath isn't going to make up for you being wussy in your workout.
Right. Right. Yeah. Totally agree. Hey, you. I wanted to press pause on this episode for a second
to talk about your fitness goals. You know, those sweet dreams of being more active and feeling athletic and confident and doing epic, adventurous shit. Or maybe you just feel like you're getting older, because we're all getting older. And you, like me, never want to give up on carrying all the groceries into the house in one shot, or picking up that heavy Amazon box without worrying that you're going to throw your back out. I know you're busy. You're probably listening to this episode while multitasking. Oh yeah, I'm on to you. And the biggest thing that's stopping you from getting strong and fit is knowing how to use your workout time most effectively. Like exactly which exercises are worth your time, when to do them, and the number of sets and reps to get to your goals. You've probably also tried other fitness apps and programs out there, only to feel like they weren't right for your needs. You want a program that has it all: strength, power, cardio, mobility, and recovery, all built right in without spending your whole life in the gym. And you want experienced coaches around to answer your questions, and a community at your back to help you stay motivated and inspired. Look, I've been coaching women for a long time now, and the truth is that you don't need another fad diet or complicated, time-consuming workout routine to support you as you age. You just need to train smarter with simple, progressive workouts and a plan that's designed for your body and your life, whether you're navigating motherhood, midlife, or menopause. And if this sounds like exactly what you've been missing, I invite you to join Stronger 365, a progressive strength, power, and conditioning training membership for women like you who are ready to stop winging it and take their training to the next level with more structure and support. And the best part? This program has 3 different options, so you can choose your own fitness adventure based on your goals, how much time you have to train, and what equipment you have, whether you've got access to a full gym or, like me, work out at home. And it's run by me, Allison Heilig, and my awesome team at Miles to Go Athletics. Head over to the show notes for all the details and to join our membership community. And as an FBG, your first 2 weeks are on me. And now, let's get back to the episode.
So with women that are going to the gym for yoga because that's what they have access to, or if they're going to a studio down the street, what type of guidance can you give them on choosing a class that is appropriately paced and set up to help them enhance their recovery? Because not all yoga is created equal when it comes to recovery.
I think especially at the gym, you get what you get. And we learned years ago at my studio, like the number one reason why people choose a class, it's not the teacher, it's not the description, it's not the title, it's the schedule. It's that it is being offered at a time that was available to them. Especially if you were like, oh, it needs to be at a time when the childcare at the gym is open, you may just get what you get. So then it's incumbent on you to be really smart about leaving things out. Maybe even to go up to the teacher and tell them, hey, I'm training for a half marathon. I just did my long run yesterday. I'm feeling kind of sore today. Can you show me what things I might skip and not really miss out on anything? And any teacher worth their salt will be able to tell you that. So it's checking your ego in your locker and not taking it into the gym studio room with you, because you probably need to do maybe 2/3 of what the rest of the classroom is doing if it's an exercise kind of class. Yeah. The other issue, and this is true at the yoga studio as well as at the gym, is that many yoga teachers are self-selected as yoga teachers because they have this natural flexibility. They have a dance background or a gymnastics background, and they don't get how it is to be coming off of a long run or to have had leg day yesterday and then be asked to do a ton of chair poses or whatever. So the more you can read through the instructor's bios and choose somebody that maybe has had some similar training experiences to you, the better your experience is going to be in that person's class.
So for women who are busy, they might not always have the ability to step out of their house and go someplace else for a yoga class. So how would someone in that position design their own yoga practice or set aside their own space, or what could they do in their own home that would complement their activity and their training and their other activities?
Great question. They can read any of my books. They can go online. And here's where I think, especially on this side of the pandemic, the proliferation of online yoga is fantastic because you're not hurting anybody's feelings if you click away from the video. So if you go into the video and you're like, this is so much harder than I need for today, just click away. It's absolutely fine. I think that is totally wonderful. And some of us, myself included, I do yoga videos upstairs here at home, even though I know I could design my own practice, but sometimes I just want somebody else to tell me what to do. I want to turn off my teaching brain and just be the student. It's just wonderful. And you can choose something short from 10 minutes to an hour or plus. I think that's really wonderful. To know whether it's going to complement your training is basically just to think, well, how tired am I? And do I feel even more tired at the end? Or do I feel happier at the end? And if you feel happier at the end, if you feel more relaxed, maybe even re-energized, then that's the kind of thing that you want to put in more of.
Yeah. And you talked about earlier the polarization. The harder you're training, the harder you need to recover, the lower the intensity your yoga practice needs to be. The online yoga, too, I have found has been really nice for people like me who know they need to check their ego at the door, but don't always do it in a studio or a gym class. So when I'm at home, I'm not impressing anybody. No one is here to see me. And if I skip an entire sequence of standing poses and lay in child's pose on my mat, no one knows.
I love it. I think it's so freeing. It's
It is.
really quite wonderful. And a little sidebar for folks who maybe have a few years of experience with yoga or a pretty complex training schedule. Since we don't want every day to wind up in the middle, while I 100% agree, like it's always better if you've had a big day to go really easy. We don't want to think, oh, I had an easy day in the gym, so I'm going to make the yoga really hard today, because that's eventually going to bring you all to medium hard every day.
Yeah.
So when in doubt, I would actually, as a coach and a yoga teacher, want people to go to group their like with like, to have the more physical practices on the same day and kind of call it all one load together, and to have the rest days be days when you're going easy. You're not going to hot vinyasa on your rest day. You're going to restorative yoga, or you're just popping on a video and lying there and skipping everything in the video on your rest day. So that your easy days stay truly easy, and the hard days are, hard enough that it feels like a challenge.
Yeah, and that's great advice, because any good coach will tell you, you need to have hard days, you need to have easy days. This is exercise physiology. You need to have this polarization of your training. Like, you're not going to be over recovered, most of us in modern life.
No. And so maybe you're missing out on the very, very top edge performance. Unless you're competing at the very highest level, I would not worry about that. I would worry a lot more about being under recovered, because when that happens, you are on the road to burnout or injury or both. And then you might never get to do this thing that is currently bringing you, I hope, joy. So it's always better to err on the side of being too conservative and recovering too hard.
They should give awards out for
Yes.
most recovered.
Well, they don't give awards for suffering, right?
So, that's true.
I'll give you a gold star for not suffering if you don't have to.
So there's inevitably a time in our lives where, even if we were a competitive athlete, that we start to fade into more of a recreationally competitive athlete, and then maybe a weekend warrior, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as time goes on throughout life, should we expect that there is potentially greater need for recovery, or an equal need for recovery, even when we're not training that hard?
Yes. And also, if you mess it up, it won't matter so much if you're not competing. It will matter if you make yourself sick because you didn't recover enough, but you're not going to jettison your race if you're not racing. I mean, that's a little tautological, but it's also true.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that I actually, physician heal thyself. I spend a lot of time in the middle because I never have to pull it all out on a big day. Like, I don't need to have a high day. I just like to exercise. And so I'm looking more at the day-to-day level and way less toward trying to build toward a peak. So, well, I do recover really hard. I get a lot of spa treatments and go to a lot of really mellow yoga classes and read a lot of novels in my recliner and take a lot of warm baths. That's also because that makes me feel good. And it's less like, oh, I know I need to do this as the antidote to going hard, just because I never really go all that hard.
Yeah, and it's the difference between treating your recovery as part of your training or just something that you enjoy in life. And as you said, one of the most important things is to do stuff that you enjoy. If you do not enjoy something and you're doing it for recovery, are you really recovering?
Exactly. No, especially if it's something like railing on your body with a foam roller. At some point, that doesn't just pay diminishing returns, it becomes actively self-sabotaging. Like, you're increasing inflammation. And if the idea is to get rid of inflammation, what are you even doing? Like, it's time to stop. Put the foam roller down. Go sit on the couch and pull up Netflix.
What advice could you give for how to create that space or carve out that time? And then when you have the time, what should you do with it? How do I create the space in my schedule for recovery, either for my life or for my sport? And then when I have it, what is the direction on figuring out the best way to use it?
I think, as you already said, it's useful to do the things that you like the most. If you're a fan of journaling, I think journaling is a great way to get into it. And in fact, if you're a fan of just writing stuff down, block off the time on your schedule. Like, I'm going to take half an hour in the morning. I'm going to take half an hour in the afternoon. And in the afternoon, I might use that to do a really mellow yoga video. And in the morning, I might take it to do a little bit of journaling or really like a body scan, kind of check in and see what the state of things is so that I know what raw materials I'm bringing into my day and where I might feel a little deficient or a little tender and where I might need to emphasize a little bit extra self-care or build some time into the schedule over the course of the day. What can I cancel based on what I found in my 30-minute morning check-in? So journaling is a really good way to do that. As I said, body scans, even just taking the time to do your resting heart rate measurements. Like I said earlier, like that can be part of it as well. And all of that then gives you that view inside, like you've opened the little window into the state of being in your body. And once you get good at seeing how things are in your body, then you can make choices around like, what do I want to do with my half hour this afternoon? Maybe like I'm really, really sore, so I'm not going to do any yoga. I'm going to go get a pedicure or whatever.
I love that approach because I think sometimes we think about recovery as being really prescriptive, right? Like, this is what people need to do for recovery because that's how it's shown to us, I think, on like social media. It's like you need the ice bath or you need this specific tea, or there's always some prescription for optimizing your life and optimizing your recovery. And I think a lot of times it misses the mark on like, what do you need? Because we don't come into one day the same combination of things as we do the next. And I love that you say start with checking in with what you actually need. Don't just assume you need an ice bath or a cold plunge first thing in the morning. What do you need? Because it's a really big part of being able to recover well is where is the recovery need, right?
What's pulling you toward it? And maybe it's looking outside and thinking, this is the most beautiful day we've had in 3 weeks. I'm just going to pull out a towel and throw it down on the grass and lie there. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. And giving yourself the permission slip to just do that thing, even if it feels unproductive or it doesn't feel as fancy or it's not what everybody's putting on Instagram. It's what you want and what your body's calling for.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little treat that you can give yourself. I was trying to find a good way to put it as an analogy, but this doesn't quite work. But you have your birthday and your family sends you some sweet little checks, like $25, $50, $200. What? And doesn't it feel like that's different money? Like it's in a different bucket and you can spend it on something that you wouldn't spend your money on.
Yeah.
It would be really boring to take that and just put it in the bank account and use it to pay your cable bill. I don't know who pays the cable bill these days, but you take my point.
Yes.
And it feels like, oh, this is something I can spend. And you have this opportunity if you can build some good boundaries around your scheduling, even 30 minutes once a day, not even 30 minutes twice a day. If you can use that and treat that time like it's your birthday time, like it's your, like this is something that I can buy those sunglasses with instead of buying groceries with.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think we can get into that trap of is another thing on my to-do list. I need to figure out what to do to recover. And you don't want it to go there. Right? You want it to be special. This is supposed to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It should feel good. It should give you joy. It should make you a nicer person to be around. And then the whole planet is winning.
Yeah. And bringing it full circle back to where you said one of the ways to really think about when do I need more recovery is by looking at your performance. So if you're not an athlete or if you're just an active person and you just are a normal person going about your life, when your performance in life starts to suffer, that's a good time to check in and be like, what is it that I need right now that would allow me to continue to perform in my life as well as possible?
Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. I could talk to you for a long time. So obviously people can grab your books. There are plenty of them out there. And you just released the second edition of Athlete's Guide to Recovery, which I see back there on your bookshelf. Yeah, perfect. And then you've also got a free 2-day at-home retreat. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, this is a great way if people are thinking, I do need to schedule some downtime for myself, but I don't know what to do. I'll give you a ton of suggestions of ways that you can check in with yourself, of ways that you can do really easy mindfulness meditation exercises, a little bit of movement, nothing too spicy, nothing too hard, and ways that you can build in some treats, either on a like really low budget or on a splurge budget if you did just get your birthday money. So it's called 2 Days to Transformation. It is a little taste of something that I offer in a bigger retreat called 2 Weeks to Transformation. They're both at-home online guided retreats. So I give you a lot of suggestions and you get to pick and choose which of those treats you want to serve to yourself. And in 2 days, I think this is just a great model for busy people in general. You spend the first day letting go and putting stuff down. And then once you've created some space, in day 2, you can start to think, what did I just make space for? And maybe the answer is, I want to keep this space empty. Or maybe the answer is, oh, now I can see what I want to pick up and what I now am making some fresh energy to take on.
Yeah, and that's brilliant because people don't always, like, especially if you're very busy, you might not be used to, like, what do I do when I have space? And it would be nice to have somebody guiding that and giving options. I love that. So people can find that on your website, right? sagerountree.com/retreats. We'll link it in the show notes. And where can people go if they want to check out your work, see what you're up to, connect with you? Where are you most active?
On my website and on socials, I'm on all the metaverse stuff at Sage Rountree, and there's no letter D in my last name. So SAGEROUNTREE. I post some yoga content on LinkedIn, but generally on Instagram, and I have fun on Threads. I like words.
Oh, yeah.
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 So I have fun on Threads.
Have
I'm
been
on
spending some
Facebook.
time. Mhm.
Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much again, Sage, for being here.
That's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And that's a wrap for this week's episode of the Fit Bottom Girls podcast. But don't worry, we're dropping new episodes every Thursday. In the meantime, head over to the show notes for all the links from today's episode, or go to fitbottomedgirls.com/podcast to catch up on past episodes. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next week.